When you sent me packing down Green River Valley, I knew that if you couldn't, then no one would happen. Lost myself drinking with.
Hello, ciao, bonjour. This is Adam, and you're listening to Mile High Stash, the podcast that asks what 5 albums you would take to a remote Colorado cabin in the event of a zombie apocalypse. Happy Labor Day. I hope you're not working today. I am actually leaving this afternoon for a week in France, but I worked overtime to get this episode to you. It's very special to me, actually. One of my childhood heroes, Bill Stevenson of the Descendents and Black Flag and the legendary Blasting Room Studio in Fort Collins, is my guest today. And it turns out you don't really interview Bill Stevenson. You get on a train that's moving fast and try to hold on, or a roller coaster. He's so joyful and so talkative and funny, and yes, he moves fast and he laughs a lot. I asked Bill about his evolution as a drummer, and he immediately started talking about getting out his parents' pots and pans on the kitchen floor as a kid in Southern California. He must have been a handful. At about 14, he accumulated some drums, a guitar, and a bass, and created his first song, My Age, and then created the Descendents. My Age turned out to be one of the most iconic punk rock songs in history. Milo may have gone to college, but Bill Stevenson created My Age, and that track is still like a rocket ship into loving punk rock for so many kids around the world. I know it was for me. The Blasting Room Studio is also celebrating 30 years in business, and we talked about Bill's life as a drummer and as a producer. Anyway, here's my chat with Bill Stevenson after a few words from the amazing Hennepin Barbershop in South Boulder. Thanks for listening, and please do review Mile High Stash on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Hennepin Barbers in Boulder, Colorado, is the brainchild of Ben Tim, who found satisfaction in making his circle of friends look and feel handsome, and turned that passion for great haircuts into a career. Ben feels that a barbershop is a place where you should expect to find an eclectic group of individuals that can properly serve the community with quality, consistent services related to the traditional practices of barbering. Hennepin is located in South Boulder next to Moe's Bagels and offers high-quality haircuts, beard trims, shaves, and conversation. Head to hennepinbarbers.com today to check out their services and book an appointment. Hey, Bill,
Hello?
what's up? How you doing,
How
man?
you doing?
Oh, I'm not bad. You're in Fort Collins, right?
I am. You're in Boulder?
Yeah, I'm in Boulder. I wanted to just start with your first musical memories. You're from California originally?
Yeah, I grew up in Hermosa Beach, California. I lived there till I was in my late 20s, and then moved around various parts of LA, and then at a certain point ended up out here in Fort Collins.
Yeah. What are your first musical memories of hearing music and then playing music?
Right. Yeah. So hearing music, I feel like it was the ones that come to mind are that song, you know that song Water? Like
Water.
cool, clear water, water. Hey there, don't you listen to the he's the devil of a man, and he walked the burning sand for water. You don't know this song?
I don't think so.
So
I'm gonna have to
that was
look it
one
up.
of them, or that old Black Magic.
Yeah.
That old Black Magic got me. That was another one. And then another one was called Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're gonna die. But then there was the fun ones, because those were what those were. Those were my parents' 7-inch records, and I would just sit on the floor with the record player and play all their 7-inch records.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also got some that were for me, and was that one. It was a one-eyed, one-horn flying purple people eater. One-eyed, one-horn flying purple people eater. That was another one. And then oh yeah, my friend the witch doctor, he told me what to say. Boom, 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 boom. My friend the witch doctor, he told me what to do. Boom, 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 boom. I know that you'll be mine when I say this to you, oh baby. Ooh ee, ooh ah, ting tang, walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee, ooh ah, ting tang, walla walla bing bang. You know that song?
Oh yeah, these are
My friend.
amazing, like, left field eccentric pop hits, which are
But
great.
those were all my first. Those were all my first ones I remember. I'm trying to think if, or maybe that one. Oh, see the tree, how big it's grown, and friends. It hasn't been too long. It wasn't there. Song "Honey" by Bobby Goldsboro. Oh, wait, no, I just thought of the all-time one. The all-time one. The all-time one. So all the ones I just said, the one I'm going to say now is the most important one.
Okay.
It's Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town.
We talked about that actually on this show before.
Oh,
that song is fucking rad.
That song is the wreckage.
Yeah.
The lyrics of that song are just, yeah, that's probably one, that may be my all-time favorite song in my life.
So it sounds like as a kid, you were obsessed with music and there were 45s just all over the floor.
Oh yeah, and I ruined them all because me and my sister have them now, and we wanted to try to, put some of them onto a CD or whatever. What do they say? Digitize them, but they're just. I scratched them all up when I was 6, so I ruined them all.
When did you start to play music?
Okay, well, so there was the prelude, which is me on the kitchen floor now, because that other floor was in the little bedroom where my dad kept the record player. But I would get on the kitchen floor, and so I was at eye level with the cupboard that's like underneath the sink, the one where all their pots and pans are. The one that's like under the stove or whatever, wherever. And I'd get out the pots and pans and like the spatulas and the wooden spoons and stuff, and I'd set myself up a little drum set when I was a little kid and just beat on all the cooking pots and pans with the utensils. And that was really when I was first jamming, when I was just a little kid. But then somewhere along the line, somebody decided they could buy me a snare drum, because like in junior high and in high school, I started tapping along with my pencil and pen on my notebook with like the school band. The school band, and a lot of those songs are they're the tempo for marching, so it's like, kind of like snare drummy things.
Yeah.
And so eventually my dad got me a snare drum, and then so that was when I was maybe 13, 14, and then it was maybe the following year when I got a drum set. And then from there, so I got the drum set, and then maybe just right around that same time, my mom gave me her dad's old acoustic guitar. And then maybe just that same like couple month period, I was taking my trash can out to the curb, putting it out to the curb for trash day.
Yeah.
And I looked in my neighbor's trash can because their can was already out on the curb. And there was an instrument sticking out of the trash can. So I went over and I got the instrument, and it was a hollow body electric bass.
Wow.
So then at that point I had a drum set. Oh, it was cheap, you know. I had a
Yeah.
cheap drum set, and I had the hollow body bass out of the trash, and I had the acoustic guitar that was my grandpa's. So at that point, I could record little things. You know, back then, you could bounce from one cassette deck to the other,
Mm-hmm.
and because I had my cassette deck like on my stereo or whatever, but then I had my little, you know, like a court person's little cassette deck, those little, and
Like a stenographer's
they got the
tape
four big
recorder.
buttons on them, like four white and one red.
Did it have the
You know?
handle at the end? You remember the one with the handle at the end?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I could go back and forth. And so not long after then, and I wrote my first song, you know, which is called My Age.
Yeah.
Now it's the first song I ever wrote. And because the other guys had already, I got it kind of ahead of myself, but I don't know. I guess I'm
Yeah.
going to get ahead of myself. It's going to happen.
Well, you got it, this interest in the drums, that was so obvious. And then you got all these instruments. And it does sound like you started a band kind of right after that.
Yeah. Descendants. We started in Descendants just like,
In high school.
I had maybe had my drum set for 6 months. Maybe.
Descendants was originally a band in high school, sounds like.
Pretty much, yeah. Me and Frank and Milo all went to the same high school at the same time. Yeah. And what's funny is Tony had gone there. Tony's a little older than we are. Tony had gone to that same high school years prior. Yeah.
Yeah.
That high school's kind of so Descendants, Black Flag, Sacred Trust, The Last, Pennywise, all those bands went to the same high school.
That seems like a Los Angeles thing, because Fishbone met in high school, Los Lobos met in high school.
Yeah. But I'm saying in our high school, like 5 bands went there. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So when you say that you wrote My Age, are you talking about the bass line and the drums, or everything, the lyrics too?
Every stroke of the pick of everything.
Yeah.
The bass, the guitar, the drums, the lyrics, the melody, everything. Yeah.
And that song, it is like a bat out of hell. Like the moment that it starts.
Yeah.
I remember so well, I was in the 9th grade in Pittsburgh, and somebody had mail ordered an SST copy of that on cassette, and he made me listen to it. Like he physically inserted it into my Walkman, and the bass and the drums started, and I thought, what is this, and where did it come from, and how do I play the drums like that?
Oh, funny. Yeah, that song, you can tell it's a big influence from that band, the Alley Cats, which is a late 70s LA punk band. I think there's a couple other different Alley Cats, but the one I'm talking about is a trio, the late 70s punk band. Yeah. And they were a big influence on us. They were where we got that like that thing, and then like the drums, like all that business. We were really influenced by the Alley Cats.
It sounds like your drumming is also on a song like Silly Girl. It's very Tommy Ramone, but with My Age, like I said, out of the gate, it's like, what is this, and how did this person think that would be the drum beat for this song?
Because of the Alley Cats.
Yeah. And you guys came of age in that hardcore scene, and yet what made you want to sing about, I mean, I guess the answer might be that you were in high school, but instead of singing about spray paint the walls and rise above and things like that, you were singing about your parents and your girlfriends and things like that. And maybe, I guess my other question is, was that the beginning of emo, taking a hard sound and having your feelings in the songs?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I obviously these like terms for music, those are more for like press people and radio stations or people that are trying to market records and stuff. That's more, those terms are more for them. Like Devo wasn't sitting around going, oh yeah, we're a new wave band.
Right.
They're like, we're Devo. We don't know what we are, you know. And so I don't know what, I mean, with Descendents, our influences were really we wore them on our sleeves. We were really influenced by Black Flag and by the band called The Last. The Last was a really, really big influence on the Descendents. And so was the Alley Cats. I mean, X was a little bit, the Germs were a little bit, but it was mainly the Alley Cats, The Last, and Black Flag. And so, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, because there's two kinds of emo, right? There's emo like when punk bands started using, you know, more elaborate melodies, they called that emo. But then there's that other kind of emo like from the 2000s, and I don't know even what that term means really. It's obviously short for emotional.
Yeah.
But isn't emotional, isn't that part of being a human being? Right. I tend, so with music, what do you got? You got rhythm, harmony, and melody, inflection. What do you got? What's music? Rhythm, harmony, and melody, right?
Yeah.
So like with bands that don't use any melody, it's kind of like, well, they just took away a third of their thing. Then they've only got rhythm and harmony, and some of them don't even have much harmony in their guitars. So then it's like it's just rhythm.
Yeah.
You know? That's not interesting enough for me, you know, to be just rhythm.
Yeah. One of the things that I find interesting is wondering whether at that time in Los Angeles with all these great bands, you know, did the audiences like all the bands? You know, like did the audience that enjoyed a Black Flag and what they were singing about also like the Descendents, or did they kind of say it's not the same?
Well, let's see. There were, even in like the early stages of the LA punk scene, there were some different kind of different factions or whatever. One of the real interesting things about that first wave of LA punk rock was that really no band really sounded like another band. They were all kind of really doing their own things. Like you had X and the Plugs and the Weirdos, the Screamers, the Go-Go's, the Germs, the Eddie and the Subtitles, Black Randy and the Metro Squad, The Last.
Was Los Lobos around too?
The Bags, I think they were, but I never really got into them till like I heard them on the radio or something.
Right.
So, you know, all those bands are kind of doing their own thing, and so different people would get into different bands. And there was also different kind of music cliques, I guess, because there was sort of the Hollywood scene and the Hollywood bands, and then there was the stuff we were doing in the South Bay, you know, the Minutemen and Saccharine Trust and Descendants and Black Flag and all the other bands I'm forgetting. And then there was the orange bands in Orange County, the Adolescents, Social Distortion, the Crowd, you know, so there were different little pockets happening, I guess.
It's amazing how much was going on. And my impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the idea of punk at the time, if you were even calling it that, was just that you were going to do something different. And so at the point when punk became a sound, it's like, was it punk anymore if you weren't doing something original?
Well, that was what was kind of strange when some of the kind of pop punk bands got on the radio, then I felt like record labels were just selling these kids the same album over and over again with a different band name on it.
Mm.
Like things got really quite homogenized there for a while in the punk scene.
Yeah.
And even before that, I think, but the initially it was like more of an art scene. Like what you said, it was what it meant to be a punk band just meant that you didn't sound like anybody else.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean there was even like Wall of Voodoo and
Yeah.
you know the Bee People and what about the Suburban Lawns?
I don't know that.
Oh yeah, the Suburban Lawns and the Middle Class, the Bags. It was like just every band was kind of doing their own thing.
So at what point, did you finish high school or did you just say I'm going to go on tour and be in bands?
Yeah, I finished high school and I started down my path of getting some college education, but at a certain point I went on tour and then I just kind of never went back to school. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I had, but I guess you can't go back. I mean, whatever the choices I made, those are the choices I made.
And give me the Cliffs notes of Bill Stevenson, the Descendents, Black Flag, and how do you end up in Fort Collins, Colorado, of all places?
We got to where we couldn't really afford to live in LA as humans. Like we were all sleeping on the floor of our practice room, and our practice room was small. I mean, it was the size of I'd say a medium, small size living room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we were all living. It's just in this vacant store space that we rented, and that we didn't even have a shower. Like there wasn't hot water and there wasn't a shower. So we were living like animals, which is fine. I mean, it was easy. You just find someone and go take a shower at their house or whatever. It wasn't, it was fine. But at a certain point, we plus, it got LA, just the traffic got so bad and the pollution and the inflation and even like, in some of the areas where we had to live, a lot of racial tension, a lot of like, well, what are you doing in our neighborhood, white boy? Well, we can afford to live anywhere but here, so don't beat us up.
Yeah.
but so eventually what we did is we just decided to move elsewhere where it was kind of more affordable. And so we went to Missouri first. And in Missouri, we rented a big, huge 4-bedroom house, like two floors, 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms, 4 bedrooms, and for $200 a month.
Wow.
So we were living like kings out there. And so we didn't have to, all of a sudden, our little tiny amount of money that we make was enough so that we could live like a human being. So we were happy out there. But then after about 4 years of being there, we ended up moving to Fort Collins. So it's kind of like, what is it like? Okay, the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, like, okay, this LA is the porridge is too hot. And then Brookfield, Missouri was the porridge is too cold. And then Fort Collins is like, oh, the porridge is just right.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not huge, but it's not tiny. Because Brookfield, Missouri was it was devoid culturally.
Yeah. We
were living in a farm town where like the only thing to do on the weekend is like drink beer and go tailgating or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so eventually we moved to Fort Collins and we had friends here and we had good times on tour here. So it was very easy for us to move here and be comfortable.
Yeah. And what did you learn from the DIY business of punk rock, that you transferred into running a studio, running a business?
I personally had some good influences in that regard. One of which was my father, who after my mom bankrupted us and left him, my dad worked two full-time jobs for most of my life.
Mm.
And so I had a good example there of like, you just do what you have to do to get things done.
Yep.
You don't complain about it. You just do what you have to do. And then I also had the Black Flag guys they're a little older than I am. And they had a really strong work ethic, Chuck and Greg.
Mm-hmm.
They pretty much couldn't be stopped. Like no matter what, they were going to do whatever they had to do to get it done.
What you talk about there with your dad is a different sort of DIY. But they're both for the same reason. It's because no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, we would just do. Well, that looks weird. I look like I'm in. What's that movie called? Hold on, let me think about it. The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Do I look like the Blair Witch Project?
You kind of do. Or Nosferatu, that's another one.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to ask you about your 5 albums, and then I'll get back to the rest of the stuff. And
my 5 albums.
Hennepin Barbers in Boulder, Colorado, is the brainchild of Ben Tim, who found satisfaction in making his circle of friends look and feel handsome, and turned that passion for great haircuts into a career. Ben feels that a barbershop is a place where you should expect to find an eclectic group of individuals that can properly serve the community with quality, consistent services related to the traditional practices of barbering. Hennepin is located in South Boulder, next to Moe's Bagels, and offers high-quality haircuts, beard trims, shaves, and conversation. Head to hennepinbarbers.com today to check out their services and book an appointment. The entire, madcap theme of this podcast is that it's a scenario where there has been a zombie apocalypse and you're stranded in a cabin somewhere in a remote Colorado in the mountains, and all you have is food, water, and a crank-powered Victrola, and you can bring 5 records with you.
Well, let's see. Boy, it's just impossible, isn't it? What was my first album that I just really kind of fell in love with was probably Neil Young's Harvest.
Oh yeah.
And I still listen to that album quite a bit. I think it's kind of a perfect record. But some of the things I don't know, because a lot of whole albums aren't that good.
Right.
Couldn't I make myself 5 like compilation tapes and have it be that? Or that's cheating?
No, I think that's the opposite of cheating, actually. It's like preparing for the apocalypse, like people prepared for the year 2000. It's like,
Yeah, well, I'd have to have some Neil Young, and I'd have to have a lot of Cole Porter songs. The problem is he didn't sing a lot of his songs. Various people sung his songs, and
right.
Some of them, it's weird. I kind of like the way he sings, even though he's got kind of a weird voice.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few recordings of him singing his own songs, and I love those.
That's cool.
But I could put together a tape with just some of my favorite versions of people doing the Cole Porter songs that I love. Night and Day and Anything Goes, and In the Still of the Night and So in Love, and all those good ones. Let's Do It, and let's see. There's so many good Cole Porter songs. It's like I'm freezing up. Begin the Begin.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Love for Sale. Just One of Those Things. All those great songs. So that would be a good one to have. And then I guess I'd have to have a Ornette Coleman uh, album. But it would, I wouldn't. I would like to make a compilation because I'd like to put stuff on there from a lot of the different eras, because he started as a kind of like just a real adventurous bebop guy.
Right.
But
right.
then he kind of almost like picked the torch up from Charlie Parker. But then he really went,
Free jazz.
crazy. Yeah. And I like all of it. I like all of it. Ornette Coleman's one of my all-time favorite musicians. So yeah, the Neil Young and the Ornette Coleman and the Cole Porter. And I'd have to have what would be the like the catch-all for like loud guitars. I mean, you could almost get by with it's what I've listened to the most. It would probably either be that first Generation X album.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Or maybe Rocket to Russia by the Ramones. One of those two would work pretty well. But then I'd have to have Sabbath because they're my favorite band, or they were when I was 12.
Yeah.
I'd have to have they have that compilation that has We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll on it. That's a compilation. But on the other hand, I would want a little of the Dio era stuff on there because I like a few of those songs from Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules.
Yeah.
And I think those are good. So I could well, that's 5, but then I don't have any like Alban Berg or Bela Bartok or Schoenberg or nothing like that, but I want some of that. So what do? Do I only get one rock record and then it's got to be, if you could only have one rock record, just maybe one of those kind of early mid-era Rolling Stones records could work. Could only have one rock record, and then that would give me room to take like, say, Bela Bartok Concerto for Violin und Orchestra No. 1, which is the bomber. That would be great. And then you could really, depending on what kind of mood you were in. But then what would you do? How would you live without like the Bill Evans trio at the Village Vanguard? How do you not have that?
This is like putting together a baseball team, where you're like, well, if you put this guy here and this guy is good at defense but not offense, but you need him.
What do you not have? No Bill Monroe? You can't have Bill Monroe?
You can, but then you got to take something else off.
Or Flatt and Scruggs? You can't. What? Or what? Yeah, it's just impossible. Let's see. I gotta go with. If you're gonna be on an island for that long. But then what about my go-go music, like Trouble Funk?
Yeah.
DC go-go music. That stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Sounds like you're going to have to prepare for the apocalypse by making 5 albums full of all the stuff you want.
No Motorhead. No. What about X? I'd have to have an X album. I'd have to have an X album.
Then you got to choose which one, which makes it even harder.
Yeah. No Steve Earle or Chris Knight. No B-52s. I got to see them on their last tour there. I saw them in Vegas. It sure was fun. Boy, what a band.
They're breaking up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I thought about it ever since you emailed me and told me that I was going to do that. And I thought about it. Let me just think. Now that we mentioned all that stuff, okay, I'm still going to go with Harvest. I would have to have something from that. What do you call that? What is that called? I don't know my classical periods, but something in the like something in the like Bela Bartok or Alban Berg kind of zone.
Yeah.
I'd have to have that. I'd have to have Ornette Coleman. Have to have Cole Porter. So then it's like one guitar album. Okay. So one guitar album. What's it going to be? You could get pretty far with AC/DC, because that's.
I was gonna actually say Highway to Hell or
Yeah, those are great. Or for Let There Be Rock. Yeah, those are great. Yeah, they really are.
have you heard the Live in Paris one?
Uh-uh.
Oh, that's incredible.
What if I guess if you could only have one guitar album, it would have to be. Or what about the Pink House, the band?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a good one too.
Oh, man.
I was gonna say the Sex Pistols, because that might be my favorite guitar sound.
Right, because that's almost like perfect rock and roll and perfect punk. Yeah, that's true. That could be. I think it would have to be one of those Rolling Stones albums, like
Exile.
one of those like early middle period Stones. Any one of them, or I would make my own, because I would have to have like It's Only Rock and Roll on it, and Brown Sugar, and but then it would also have to have like Shattered and Beast of Burden, but then it would have to have Painted Black and Sympathy for the Devil and Daddy You're a Fool to Cry and
19th Nervous Breakdown.
19th Nervous Breakdown and and Street Fighting Man. Oh, but what about No Stooges? Oh, what if I just bring Raw Power? Or the second, what if I bring Funhouse, and the hell with all the rest of it?
Funhouse is, in my opinion, the greatest just pure rock and roll album that's ever been made.
So we'll bring Funhouse instead of. But then what about Mick Ronson? What about that good Bowie band?
Yeah, man.
I always thought it'd be good to have Mick Ronson and James Williamson in the same band together.
Yeah.
Like Raw Power meets Suffragette City, or Hang On to Yourself, Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think if I had only have one guitar record, I might have to be with Stones. It's tough. Or I could forfeit. Okay, hold on. Okay, so Cole Porter, Bela Bartok, Ornette Coleman. It's weird. Neil Harvest is my favorite album, but it is taking up a lot of real estate, isn't it?
It's got A Man Needs a Maid on it too. It's not the best.
Well, but you can't. That's like almost a perfect album, though.
Yeah.
I wonder what he was thinking about by that song. Like what he meant by that song.
It might be pretty self-explanatory. He was a young man who couldn't clean up after himself at the time, but it might be bigger.
Do you think?
I don't know.
Because how could something that misogynistic be sitting next to the song Alabama?
Yeah.
How could that happen?
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, did you see that movie?
The new one, the Harvest one?
Yeah.
Not yet, but I've heard that it's good. Yeah. Yeah.
It's great. But then what about, I got to bring tea for the Tillerman, don't I?
I wouldn't, but you could.
You wouldn't? What about the Pink House? Would you bring the Pink House?
Oh, fuck yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Would you bring the Pink House, or would you bring a Rolling Stones compilation? Or would you bring Funhouse?
If I had to choose between those three and it was a zombie scenario, I'm taking Funhouse, because I need to get my energy out.
Yeah, that's true, because that almost covers like really the last 30 years of guitar music, kind of, maybe 40 years. Yeah. I can't. Do people ever just give up?
This is the first time, but I love it. It's great. It's just saying that, it's like choosing your children to live,
Or what about this one? Here, what do you do here? What about this one? Is you could either save your daughter or you could save 100 other people.
That's a whole other show. And
what do you do though?
My daughter is sitting on the couch downstairs right now, and gun to my head, I probably choose my daughter. I gotta say.
Okay. What
Sorry.
about you could save your daughter or 1 million other people?
1 million?
Like either your daughter dies or 1 million people die. You choose.
Are these people who voted for Donald Trump or not?
Random cross section. Random cross section. You take the Trumpers with the wokers.
I mean, 1 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna be, very sort of existential about it, you would say that 1 million people probably die every day. That one I would have to come back to, but the first one, yeah. Well, what about you? Would you save your son, or would you save 1 million people?
I'm saying this is an unanswerable question, just like the 5 albums is.
Yeah.
The 5 albums is unanswerable for me.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
You're making me choose the Pink House and leave Beggar's Banquet behind. You're making me choose,
it says a lot about you that's excruciating.
Can I just not bring clothes? Are we going somewhere warm or cold?
Well, it's Colorado, so it might be hot, it might be cold, and it might be,
Can I want to have the zombie apocalypse in Hermosa.
Yeah. That would be a little different, but let's get back on track for a minute.
We are on track.
If there is a track.
We're having fun.
Yeah, man. I want to ask you what 30 years of the Blasting Room means to you.
Boy, in the beginning, it was just 1 million 15-hour work days all strung together for forever and ever and ever. And now I split my time, between drumming and songwriting and doing the audio engineering and mixing. So things have kind of reached a nice balance. But yeah, it's been crazy how many bands we've had through there, and just how much we've learned. I think I learned more about drumming by recording other drummers than I did by practicing or playing. When you recorded other drummers and you see the like 3 things that they do wrong that are horrible, and then you go, okay, I'll never ever do that again.
Right.
And it kind of turned me into it really improved me producing bands, or to be inspired by a great drummer, like say a drummer that just gets a really good tone and you don't know why, and it's like, well, it's because of how they're hitting the drum. They're hitting the drum.
Yeah.
And just to see how people arrange their songs, see all the different kinds of instruments people are playing, and the different chemistries and dynamics that bands have, and how some bands really are bands in the like, could sleep on the floor garage sense of the word, and then other bands really aren't bands. They're just 4 people kind of using each other, hoping to become famous. That's a different kind of a band, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's just been a learning experience. It's been I feel fortunate to have found the relationships up there that I did with Jason and with Andrew, with Chris, and with Stefan, and the same with all the band guys. I mean, I feel lucky to have had that company in my life.
Yeah. A Plasma Canvas was telling me how you can be very direct, but not in a offensive way, not in an asshole way. And that's really important. And the one thing I remember the most was Adrian telling me, Bill is willing to try anything, but he always says, we can try that, and it might suck, and I'm going to say that it sucks, and then we're not going to do that, but you're willing to try it.
It's something that took me years to learn, is that when you got a bunch of band guys on the couch and they're trying to figure out what the next part of the song is supposed to be, and they've got different ideas, and what they're doing is they're sitting on the couch and they're arguing about whether or not these ideas are any good. And I just say, look, it takes 5 minutes to try each one of these ideas. Whereas we've been sitting here arguing about them in the abstract now for 20 minutes.
Yep.
We could have already tried them all and all heard them all. Because, once we try them and once we hear them, we're all going to look at each other and go, oh, that one sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one rules. And then that's how you get stuff done. It's like, I think a lot of times it's hard for bands to trust the collective voice.
Mm-hmm.
It requires that you trust the people you're with.
Yeah.
It's also hard to admit that everybody's right. No, it is, because everybody is right. Let's say everybody's good with it, except for this person has this problem with it, and this other person has, and it's like, well, okay, it must not be right then if, even though one person says the guitars need to be louder and the other person says the bass needs to be louder, I must not have the right tones, because there is a mix where this band can be happy. Yeah. There is a mix. A mix exists where this band can be happy. And if they're arguing about, well, it's got to go this way or it's got to go that way, well, that means it must not be right. You want everybody to be happy. Everybody in the room should be happy. Otherwise, you haven't, because if it's fighting, well, it's got to be it's got to be option A. No, it's got to be option B. No, it's got to be option. And then the camp's divided, right? The band is divided. 2 of them want option A and 2 of them want option B. Well, what that sends me off into is, well, you know what? Guess what? The reason this has happened is because I haven't come up with option C yet. And when I come up with option C, all 4 of them are going to go, oh yeah, option C, like that. Yeah. You got to trust all the dissenting opinions and know that it's just hopefully going to lead you to a better spot.
Yeah. It sounds like, though, in my experience in bands, that the nightmare scenario would be all of the spoons in the pot, like the whole band sitting there during the mixing. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, but you ultimately want each one of them to be completely happy. And that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Yeah. Something. You don't just want, oh, well, if the singer's happy, who cares what the other guys think? No way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a talent that you have to be able to say, everybody's right, and let's work on
everybody's
something.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's right.
Yeah.
It's true. Everybody's right.
One thing that you said before that really struck me was how your first drum set was a piece of crap. And I had the Velveteers on, and the drummer was talking about how important it is as a kid to not have equipment, that your parents might have got you that instantly is, professional, instantly sounds good, because you have to learn how to make it sound good. Is that still something that you try to teach people, is that it's important to hone your craft and learn how to tune things and not just have everything nice automatically?
Yeah, I do. In that way, I'm still a little bit maybe primitive in that I like to go back to the actual instrument itself, because they make everything's all in the computer now, and you can make anything sound like anything else, and you can just, if you want the snare drum from the Metallica Black album or whatever, well, it's available to you. You can just trigger it, and then your snare will sound like that snare.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, no, I like the idea of getting the drums tuned right and hitting them the right way, and having it be, or with the guitars, if you're not getting the right tone, well, maybe it's the way you're playing. Well, maybe it's your pickup. Maybe it's the guitar you've chosen. Maybe it's the amplifier. Of really trying to go back as far in the chain as you can, and get to like kind of the core of it. Well, what did this band sound like when they were just in their garage? Well, what did that sound like? Well,
Yeah.
let's look at that. Okay, what's wrong with that? Like a lot of times when I'm working with the band, I like to just put them in one of our small studios and just let them practice. And I listen to them practice. I listen to them play together and go, well, what's good about this? What's bad about this? What do I feel like I really want to change? And what do I really not want to change? Because it's one of the essential details of what makes this band, as opposed to this band just sounding like some other band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to pay attention. I kind of believe in the sanctity of a musical group.
Yeah.
That the players aren't all interchangeable, and like if the drummer sucks, or just hire some session drummer. I try not to do that kind of stuff. It's just, I think ultimately those paths lead to generic music.
The last thing I want to ask you before I don't take up any more of your time is, your kid is in a band now, right?
My son Miles, yeah, it's been so cool. He took an interest in music a few years back, and so he and I have been sharing that together. We play together sometimes, and he's learning audio engineering and everything. And so, like, I taught him his first guitar chords and that sort of thing. Yeah, he has his band Hospital Socks.
Yeah.
And which have been playing around, and they're doing really well. It's been great. And then he's been playing with Plasma Canvas, actually.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, so the question is really, with my kid, she's 13, and one of the things that's really funny is I am turning her onto all of the things that I was not allowed to listen to or allowed to see or allowed to do when I was that age. And so what do you think that kids of punk rockers have to rebel against?
Oh, interesting. I've never had the best kind of macro view with respect to like politics or socio-political stuff or any of that. I haven't had much of a macro view, meaning I guess the things that I embrace or the things that I rebel against, they're more just kind of like in my neighborhood, if you will, as opposed to kind of worrying about what is happening in the, in the greater cultural scheme of things. So I don't know. I've always, I might try to rebel against my own laziness or something, or I might try to, I never thought of it in those ways. So that's really, I guess I'm not a great person to be able to tell you what today's generation could rebel against. I guess probably they just, what I see is right now, I think people need to be careful not to buy into so much of the kind of hatred and polarization that's happening right now. So that they could just rebel against being an asshole. Like try to be good to each other and be considerate. Be considerate. Like the things your grandma told you, do those things. Do those things your grandma told you. Be kind, be considerate, be generous, be thoughtful.
Yeah.
Those and so try to aim toward those things, and then maybe you don't need to rebel against anything. If you just aim toward those things, you will steer clear of the other stuff by by process of elimination.
Yeah. It's like that Dylan line, hate nothing at all except hatred.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. It was a blast. And
okay, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. I hope my 5-album answer was just not too much of a blithering idiot.
no, it was hilarious and thought-provoking. And the one thing in the back of my mind right now is there's a playlist for Mile High Stash on Spotify where every time somebody chooses 5 albums and the episode comes out, I put one song from each of those albums on the playlist.
Oh, wow.
So with you, I'm thinking
You're gonna add like 100 songs.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, well, you have a good evening.
You too, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, see ya.
I'll give you another hour, then I gotta run, I gotta fly away, leave you to fall, yeah. Leave you to stop.
Merci. That was Bill Stevenson and me talking punk rock and production and, talking in circles about his 5 albums because he loves music so damn much. I think he's the first person unable to hone it down to 5 albums, and that was, as the saying goes, more fun than a frog and a glass of milk. But check out the Blasting Room in Fort Collins if you play rock and roll and want to make a record with Bill Stevenson. And check out Mile High Stash again next Monday. As usual, I'm going to be in France for the next week, but I am going to figure out how to still bring you an episode. So we'll talk soon.
I wanna go back to Montreal. So you wanna rise above duality, you wanna transcend day and night. Yes, I'm old-fashioned, I just don't share your passion for ever-changing eternal twilight.